Hello Divination and welcome. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a customized minimal product page with Divi's new Woo modules. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. Alright, so right now I'm in my WordPress admin dashboard, and the first thing we need to do is to install WooCommerce. This is a free plugin, and to install it, you want to come over here to plugins, click on add new. And then you want to search for WooCommerce up here. So in my case, I've already gone ahead and installed it. So as you can see here, it says active. So you want to install it and then activate it. So once activated, if I come over here to install plugins, you can see here that WooCommerce has been activated. And there's also this WooCommerce admin. This also comes in by default with the normal install. Next, what you want to do now is to add your product. So to add products, you just hover over here where it says products and then click on add new. Now you want to add your product. So I'm just going to type in here, Lantern Lamb. So the next thing we need to do is to add a product category. So over here, you can see we have uncategorized. We want to add our own category. So we're going to call this lamps. And then I'm just going to say add new category. And as you can see, it's checked by default. So the next thing we need to do now is to add a description for our product. And to do that, I'm just going to come over here and just paste some lorem text. And I'm also going to come over here to the short description and do the same. So here you can add a price, so it can be whatever you want. So I'm just going to go with $49. And then here on the inventory, you can also activate this button here and add your stock. So I'm just going to say 20, and the low stock threshold, I'm just going to leave that to 2. But of course, if you want to use this inventory, you can just leave it as it is. But the good thing is, if people start buying now your products, they will be subtracting here as people are buying. So let's say 2 people buy, what will show on the stock availability is going to be 18. Now let's add our images. So I'm going to come over here to my product image, and I have already added some images to my image library. And if you want to add your own images, or if you want to use the exact same ones, if you go to the post that I'll link to in the show notes below, it will give you access to this layout pack. So now I'm going to go ahead and choose my product. And as you can see here, we can go with any of these. It's just the main image. So I'm going to set my product image. And then I'm also going to add a gallery for this. So I'm going to click here on add product gallery. And then I'm just going to choose the images for the gallery. Click on add to gallery. So now I have 3 images that are added there. Now back over here on the product data, on the shipping, you can also add your shipping details if you need to here. And if we take a look here, the attributes as well, you can also add more information about this product itself. But you know what? Pretty much we have everything that we need. I'm just going to click here on publish. And now it's time to build the layout for our product. So before we do that, over here on page layout, it has a right sidebar. We want to make sure that there's no sidebar. So I'm going to go ahead and choose no sidebar. Click on update. And then I'm going to click on use the Divi builder, start building. Now, when I come back over here on my page layout, you notice that if I click on this drop down, we now have an option which says full width. So that's the one I'm going to select, but it only shows up once you activate the builder. So when it comes to designing using the Divi builder, I prefer designing this from the front end. So let's save this, and then let's switch over here and start designing it from the front end. So now it's done updating. So I'm just going to click here on build on front end. So as you can see, we are seeing the original stuff that we've just added. We have our lamp here, and we also have the products, the description, the pricing, and we also have the availability here as well. But of course, we want to create all this from scratch. So we're going to go ahead and delete this. So next, we are going to just go over here to our section settings. I'm just going to close this. And then I'm going to click here on background and add a background color by clicking here on this plus button. And our background color here is going to be white. Next, I'm going to add some margins. So I'm going to come over here to design and then click on spacing. So over here, my margins are going to be 100 pixels, both to the top and the bottom. And notice that I've used this chain so that my values are the same to both on the top and the bottom. Next, I'm going to come over here to advanced, click on visibility. So here we want to set our horizontal overflow to hidden, and I'm also going to do the same for vertical overflow. We're going to save that, and then we're going to start adding our rows. To add our row, I'm just going to click here on this plus button, and we're going to need a single column. And before we do anything here, we are going to go into our row settings and set our top and bottom padding. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon, go to design, spacing, and on my padding here, I'm just going to set this to 0, both to the top and the bottom, and then save. Now it's time to add our modules. So the first module I'm going to add here is the Woo breadcrumb. So I'm just going to click here on this plus button to add my module, and then I'm just going to search for Woo breadcrumb, and there it is. I'm going to go ahead and select it. You know what? I just need to snap this over to the left so I can see what I'm designing here. Now let's set our text here. So I'm going to click here on design, and then I'm going to go to text, and for my font here, I'm going to use a font called Railway. Select that, and then on my font weight, I'm going to set this to semi-bold. And for my size, I'm going to set this to 12. And for the line height, I'm going to set this to 1.3. Now over here on the link text, I'm going to set my color here, paste it. And by the way, if you want to use the exact same color, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. So while we're here on the link text, we're also going to set the size here to 13 and then save. Next, we need to add another row, and this time we're going to add a different column structure. So I'm going to click on this plus button, and the column structure we're going to go with is this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to go into the settings of this new row. Now here, we're going to go to design, spacing, and we're going to add a top margin of 100 pixels. But the bottom here is going to be 0. Now let's go ahead and add a few settings to our column 1. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon. So the first thing is to add my background color. So I'm going to click on this plus button and add my background color for that particular column. Now, right now, it will not show any colors because I haven't added any content to it. Next, we're going to go to design, border, and we're going to add some rounded corners. And it's going to be about 20 pixels. And we're also going to add a box shadow. So I'm going to click here on box shadow, click on the first option, and then we're just going to add and make a few changes to our default settings. So let's start here with our vertical position. We're going to set this to 60 pixels, and then we're going to go to our blur strength, and we're going to set this to 100. And then finally, over here on the color, I'm just going to click on this eyedropper tool, and then I'm just going to paste my values between the brackets just like that. Now, pretty much our design here is almost complete. Next, let's head over here to advanced and then click on visibility. Here, we also need to work on our horizontal and vertical overflows. So here, I'm going to set this to visible, and I'm also going to do the same over here on the vertical as well. So pretty much that's all I need to do here. I'm going to save one more time. Now it's time to add our product. So I'm going to add my products here to the first column. So I'm going to click on this plus button and then search for Woo product. So I'm just going to search for Woo image. I'm going to select it. And now you can see the rounded corners that we added earlier on. So it's important here that the product that is selected here is this product. So this will show us the product of that actual item on that page. So make sure it's set to that product, because there's also other options here, like for example, latest products, product lab, and so on. So, but we need to leave it at this product. Now let's also add a few design changes to this. So we're going to click here on design. So the first thing we need to do is to head over here to spacing and add a margin of minus 110 pixels. So for now, we're going to save, and then over here, we're going to click on this plus button and add a text module and select it. So for this text module, what we're going to do is use dynamic text. So I'm going to click here on this little icon, and what I need is product categories. So here it is. I'm going to click on it. And by the way, this is dynamic, so it will just show the product categories on that space. All right, so now that we have that, the next stage is to customize this text. So I'm going to save this, click on design, text, and then we're going to change our font here to Railway. For our font weight, we're going to set this to bold. We're also going to make this uppercase. And now let's add our text color by clicking on this eyedropper tool. And I'm just going to paste my color in here. Now the link text size also needs some adjusting. So I'm just going to click here on this little tab. So our link text size is going to be 12 pixels. And for the link letter spacing, we're going to set this to 2 pixels. And then for the line height, we're going to set it to 1.3. So pretty much we're done here. Let's go ahead and save. Next, we're going to add another module. So I'm going to click here on this plus button. And this time, this is going to be Woo title. So I'm going to search for Woo title and select it. So this will show us the product title of whatever we have here on this page. So again, make sure this is set to this product. And now let's go ahead and customize our font. So we're going to click here on design, title text. So first we're going to change our font here to railway. The weight, we're going to set this to heavy. We're going to add our color. And for the size, we're going to set this to 70. So pretty much this looks great. I'm going to save this. Next, we're going to add another module. So this time, this one here is going to be Woo descriptions. So I'm just going to search for Woo description. So over here, you can see we have description type. So if you click on this drop down, you can either choose the main description or the short description. So in this case, we want the short description, and we also want to make sure this setting is left at this product. Now let's customize our text by clicking on the design tab, and then we're going to choose railway as our font. And for our font weight, we're going to set this to medium. The size here is going to be 12 pixels. And for the letter spacing, we're going to set this to 1. And then finally here for the text line height, we're going to set this to 2.3 and then save. So moving on, it's time to add the price. So I'm going to click on this plus button, and again, we're going to search for our Woo price. I'm going to select it. Now let's go and modify this text by clicking on the design tab, price text, and then we're going to choose our font here, which is railway. Now notice that I'm choosing the same font because we want to make sure that we have our consistency throughout this design. Next, I'm going to click here on our font weight, and we're going to set this to, let's set it to bold, because by setting it to bold, it's easier to see and it's right there. It's very clear to see. I'm going to click here on our color and paste my color in here. And then we also need to go to our text size and set this to 30. Letter spacing is going to be 2. And our line height is going to be 1 EM. So for this module, we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to add some margins to this. So I'm going to click here on spacing and add a margin of 50 both to the top and the bottom. So that just gives us some breathing space between the description here and the price. So that's all we need to do for the price here. I'm going to click on save. Next, we also need to add the Woo add to cart settings. So again, I'm going to search for Woo add. So here it is, the Woo add to cart. And you notice here we have the amount in stock as well, which is great. And this is set during the product setup. So let's customize this by coming over here to design text. Again, we're going to change our text here to railway. We're going to set this to medium. To semi-bold. We're going to add our text color, and our text size here is going to be 12. Now we're going to go to our field settings. So I'm going to scroll down here until I find fields. So there's a lot that can be done here. So let's start by adding our field's background color by clicking here on this color. Now the color I'm going to add here has transparency. So I'm just going to click here on this slider just to drag it down a bit so I can get my settings here for the RGBA. So I'm going to paste my values like that. If you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so now that I have this, the next is the fields text color. I'm going to paste it in here. Now this is the normal hexadecimal color. So just go ahead and paste it in there. Now the field focus text color is our next one. So again, I'm going to come over here and paste the exact same color. We're also going to do some margins. So I'm going to start off by adding a margin of 6 pixels. And then for the fields padding, I'm going to set this to 32 pixels, both to the top and the bottom. And then for my font, we're going to set this to railway. And the fields text size, we're going to set this to 16 pixels. Now let's go to the fields border. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here, and so for my border here, I'm going to set this to 1 pixel, and then I'm going to add my color by just pasting it in here. So next, as you can see, our button here looks very standard. This is how it comes out of Divi. So let's customize this button as well by clicking here on this brush tool, and this is going to take us straight to use custom styles for button. So I'm going to activate this. And then the very first thing I want to do is to set my button text size. It's going to be 13 pixels. And then I'm going to add my text color. Now for my text color, it's going to have some transparency. So I'm just going to drag the slider down just a little bit. And then I'm going to paste my values between the brackets like that. Now it's time to add the button background color. So I'm going to click on this plus button, paste my color in here. So next for the border width, I'm going to set this to 0. And then for the border radius, again, I'm going to set this to 0. So by default, our button letter spacing here is set to 0. So I'm going to change this and set this to 3. Now it's time to add our font. So I'm going to click on this drop down, choose Railway. We are going to make it all caps. And here for the weight, we're going to set it to semi-bold. And then now let's work on our padding. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here, and the very first thing I'm going to do is to add my top and bottom padding, and this needs to be 20 pixels. And then my left and right is going to be 65. So this just makes my button look nice and big. Next, we're going to come over here to our box shadows. So here we are going to add our box shadow vertical position, and we're going to set this to, let's set it to 12. And my blur strength, we're going to set that to 38. And then over here on the shadow color, I'm going to paste my values between the brackets like that. And then we're going to save. Right, so this is looking great so far. The next stage is to add another row. So I'm going to click on this plus button, and the row structure I'm going to add is 2 equal columns. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And let's head over straight to our column 1 settings. So I'm going to close this, go into my row settings, click on column 1 settings. So here we're going to start with our top and bottom padding. So I'm going to click on spacing, set my values to 100, and then activate the change so that you set it for both the top and the bottom. So we're going to save that, save it one more time. And in this very first column, we're going to add some text. So I'm going to search for my text module, select it. So all I'm going to say here as a title is product details. And let's set this to heading 2. So I'm going to click on this drop down, set this to heading 2. Now let's go to the settings and customize the text. So I'm going to click here on design, heading text. Make sure you're on H2 tab. And then here for the font, we're going to go with Railway. The font color, I'm going to paste my color in here. Our size is going to be 30. And for our weight, it's going to be ultra bold. Next, we're going to come to our letter spacing, set this to 1, and our line height to 1.4 EM. Next, we're going to add a margin. So I'm going to click here on spacing, and we're going to add 10 pixels for our margin bottom, and then save. Right, so the next stage is to add our description. So I'm going to click on this plus button and search for Woo description. Select it. And here, instead of short description, we're going to go with actual description. Now, as we did before, we need to customize this text. So we're going to come to our text settings, click on text, change our font to Railway. And then for our font weight, we're going to set this to medium, our size to 12 pixels, letter spacing, we're going to set this to 1, and our line height 2.3, and then save. So the next thing we're going to do is to add an image. So this is going to be a basic image module. So I'm going to click here on image, and then I'm going to choose the image to go with that. So I'm going to select it, click upload an image, and then let's head over to our box shadow, click on the first option. And let's just do a few customizations here. So our vertical position, we're going to set this to 60. For our blur strength, we're going to set this to 50. And then we're going to come over here to our shadow color and just paste the values between the brackets. So pretty much that's all we need to do here. We're going to save. And then over here on column 2, we also need to add an image module. So I'm going to search for it. So here we want to delete this and leave this area here empty. So over here on the background, what we're going to do is to click on the third tab, and we are going to add a dynamic image here. So we're going to set this as a featured image. So I'm going to click here on use dynamic content and then select featured image. So all these settings here can be left the way they are. You don't need to make any changes to that. And then over here on the design sizing, we're going to force full width. And then next we need to go to spacing, and over here on spacing we need to add a margin of -5 VW, and our padding here is going to be 25 VW, but this is going to be both on the left and the right. Then we're going to come over here to transform, click on transform scale. We're going to set our scale here to 150. So here on transform translate, let's break the chain and set our value here to the bottom to 18 VW. So pretty much this is our design. And over here on visibility, you can actually disable this on the phone and the tablet because it won't look great on that. So this just needs to be available on the desktop. So now I can save this And then let's do a quick preview of our product. So I'm going to save this page one more time, and then I'm going to exit the Visual Builder. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.